Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
hello.
Hello?
We have everyone here. We also have Alinka here on the phone, but your pretty face isn't showing up, just so that folks know. So thank you
Hello,
guys so much for
everybody.
being here. I just kind of want to read about some of your bios first, so we just have a sense of everyone who's on the panel right now, because I'm really pumped about this topic and about sharing it with you. Oh, and I'm watching a mosquito. Oh, that's so gross. Sorry, we're in South America and the mosquito season is still rampant. So let's start. Ash Roy. After a corporate career in finance and strategy that spanned 15 years in large multinational corporations, Ash Roy founded Productive Insights in 2013. Productive Insights helps businesses create systems and automate marketing processes to leverage the power of the internet and increase profitability. Ash Roy holds a CPA and an MBA from the Australian Graduate School of Management. He enjoys partnering with business owners to deliver results. I've got Matthew Turner. Matthew Turner is an author and storyteller who works with entrepreneurs, founders, and creative thinkers to build thriving businesses that light a fire within them. After interviewing 163 authority figures, Matthew has unearthed how successful people overcome failure and adversity, not only ensuring they don't ruin their livelihood, but form the basis of their greatest idea yet. Through his research and findings, he's ready to share what separates successful business people apart from everyone else and how you can implement a successful mindset that lets you build a happy, free, and successful work-life balance. Alinka Rutkowska is a multi-award-winning and #1 international best-selling author and coach. She's also on a cruise ship right now in Alaska as we speak. She is the founder and CEO of Library Bub, which connects librarians with award-winning and best-selling books from independent publishers. She's the founder and administrator of the Reader's Favorite Forum for Authors. She's also the founder and host of the 5-Figure Author Challenge, which gives authors winning strategies to get to 5 figures in 5 months. And last but not least, Dana Wilde. After growing her own business from $0 to $1 million a year in under 19 months, Dana Wilde now teaches others how to do the same. With nearly 100,000 followers in 68 countries, Dana is the best-selling author of Train Your Brain and is featured in the movies The Abundance Factor and The Truth About Prosperity. Fascinated by neuroscience and the power of the mind, she affects lives daily on the Mind Aware show, where she interviews thought leaders, brain scientists, and celebrities about how to intentionally think wealthier, healthier, and happier thoughts. So Dana, I'm really gonna kind of start with you because, you know, the topic of this panel is really this idea of mindset, abundance, and success. And mindset is really your area of expertise. So can you kind of get us started? Tell us how you got into this world and why it matters to you, and then why you think it should matter to everybody else.
Yes, and thank you for having me, and I'm really excited to be on this panel because I love everybody who's here, and we're going to have such a rockin' time. So I started studying mindset about 30 years ago. I was one of these kids in high school who just was like geeked out on like the nature of reality and all, you know, how people tick and all this, and I started working right after high school for a major corporation in the United States that was a horrible job. It was a cubicle job where you just sat and you were like chained to your desk all day. But one of the benefits was at some point they said, you know what, we're going to take you all out of the cubicles for 40 hours and we're going to give you 40 hours on how the brain works. I was like, oh, in heaven, like that was my thing, you know, I was so excited. So a guy named Lou Tice came in and taught for 40 hours. And some of your listeners may know who Lou is. He was quite big in mindset before he passed. And immediately, once I figured out like your brain creates your outcomes, I quit the cubicle job, bless their hearts, and I went on like my grand adventures. So I did things like worked in film and video and won some tele awards. I was overseas for better part of 10 years, like living out of a backpack. And when I got back to the United States, I kind of fell into a direct sales business and went to one of these party plan things, you know, and thought, hey, I could do this. And I realized that everybody out there is teaching how to build a business through action. you know, how to pick up the phone, how to network, how to work harder. And nobody was really talking about the power of mindset. So I trained my team. I wrote Train Your Brain at that time, trained my team, Train Your Brain. And we went to the $1 million level in 19 months, which is just unheard of in direct sales. So what mindset has allowed me to do, and in particular, one fact in particular, I can teach your listeners everything that they need to know about mindset right now in 60 seconds or less. And that is, each and every one of us has inside of our brains a part of the brain called the reticular activating system. And when you understand that your reticular activating system is the part of the brain that's standing at attention all day, every day, listening to what you're thinking about and listening to what you're talking about, and it's sifting through the mucky muck and looking for or matching up what is you're already thinking about and talking about. I mean, think about the billions of bits of information and stimuli that come at us every single day. Well, once you start to realize that whatever I'm thinking about, whatever I'm talking about, that's what my brain is sifting through and looking for, now you get to be a really good thinker. You get to be really serious about thinking in your own head. And so that is the fact out of the whole 40 hours that really changed my life. And I realized that if I was going to have success, or if I was going to have happiness, or if I was going to have the life that I wanted to, I had to start thinking different thoughts. And just to make sure that people understand that they're already doing this, most people have had the experience where they have seen, maybe they're looking for a car, and then they start to see that car everywhere, or they're wanting to get pregnant, or their partner is wanting to get pregnant. They start to see pregnant people everywhere. It's because that's what you're thinking about, so you start to see it. Matthew, when he interviewed me, we had a great chat. He said, oh my gosh, I just had a baby. We just had a baby, and I'm seeing babies everywhere. And it's like that. So really, once you start to realize that, now you can start to have anything you want. You just get better at thinking. So I hope that answered. It was a very long walk to a small house, but it was a powerful small house.
I've never heard that, a very long walk to a small house. I love that. So Alinka, I want to kind of draw you in here because, you run something called a 5-figure author challenge. That's, one of the many things you do. And you work to show authors that they really can sell. And I'm curious because I think mindset has a lot to do with the work you do, but I'm not sure if that's the way you package it. Can you kind of tell us about your journey and explain to us maybe how that does relate to selling?
Absolutely. Well, I start with telling you that mindset has everything to do with selling. So I absolutely agree with what we just talked about. It's not something that I package as, mindset. We have to do this first. But you can tell when you listen to people, who speak at this summit, you'll see, that we're specifically talking about mindset, but you will see that, it shines through. That's the number one thing that drives people. So I have to agree that I have a bunch of stories to tell about myself, but first I'd like to tell stories of my authors. So I work with authors or with people who want to become authors, so aspiring authors. And the first objection that I get is that they just want to write and they don't want to sell, or they don't want to appear salesy. So in the author world, it's never been easier to write a book and to self-publish that book, but it's actually a challenge to sell it. So I help people with strategies to sell. But really, the first thing to sort of overcome that objection is to reframe the whole selling thing that they might not be too excited about. So I reframe the selling into helping. So, if you're a nonfiction author, you're helping somebody with your know-how. And if you're a fiction author, you're entertaining. So it's really no longer selling, but it's helping or entertaining. And that completely, reframes the whole selling part. And then the next thing I think is I help people to truly dig into their why. So it's, not just so that they know what they're selling, because they know what they're selling, but to know why they're selling that. in that case, that book. And when we start digging into the why, then we discover that they're truly on a mission, and it's often, their life purpose. They want to write something that's really important and meaningful to them, and publish that and spread the word. So when we reframe the conversation this way, then, it has a whole different meaning to people. And the 5-Figure Author Challenge, 5-Figure Author Challenge helps authors do that: write, market, and sell. And these are, specific strategies on these 3 parts. But you will see when you listen to the speakers that they have that mindset. So even though we don't really talk about the mindset itself, we talk about the strategies. But you will see how they become, best-selling authors because of their mindset. And I really like I've always been a huge believer of the mindset the success mindset. I think I read Think and Grow Rich when I was a teenager. I don't remember exactly, but that book, and I'm sure you've heard about it a million times. And everybody on this panel, and you must have read it at least once. But I think that's where a lot of people start. I mean, come on, I can think, right? So I can grow rich. So I think that's what gets people really excited and started. And then, the path may vary, but I think that's a huge, huge milestone in people's lives. That book, and you must have your own stories, and your own books. And, now I have a huge library of thousands of books, but that's the thing that really got me started and excited. Number 1 book I would recommend for somebody who wants to get into the success mindset.
I love it. And I'm going to bet that Ash has read that book. Ash, I want to talk about mindset and the importance of thinking big with you. And I first really want to kind of understand where you come from. You spend a lot of time today talking to entrepreneurs, and as a result, you've likely learned a lot from them as well as from your own work. Tell me, kind of talk to me about this idea of how thinking big affects the actual decisions you make, and not just necessarily the quality of the decisions, but the actual decisions that you make.
Sure. So I speak to, as you said, I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs on my podcast called the Productive Insights Podcast. I'm the host. And I recently spoke to a gentleman called John McGrath, who's quite a successful entrepreneur here in Australia. He's built a multi-million-dollar business, and he happens to be friends with a guy called Russell Crowe that you may have heard of. They went to school together. And so now, back in school, Russell Crowe used to get, bit bagged out. He used to say, I wanted to be an actor. And John McGrath used to say, I want to be a real estate agent. Well, actually, at that stage, he didn't know what he wanted to do. But he was very clear when he made his decision to become a real estate agent that he was going to be the best on the planet. And he actually says that in the podcast. Now, specifically to respond to your point, Claire, what he said to me was, when you start thinking big, it doesn't just affect the degree to which you decide to do certain things, but the actual nature of your decisions. And what I mean, I'll probably explain that, is to use an actual example. So let's take Steve Jobs, for example. He always challenged the status quo, and he started by doing it in his own mind. And coming back to Dana's point earlier on, I think a lot of this mindset stuff starts from internal examination and self-awareness. But I don't know how many people know this, but Jobs was a very, very regular practitioner of mindfulness. And even though he threw his tantrums and he was a little bit of a tyrant, he was very, very mindful, very self-aware. And he actually practiced a lot of Zen Buddhism. Now, the 1984 campaign, for example, where Apple goes and challenges the big blue, and they throw that hammer into that IBM thing, and that whole ad that was all about challenging the status quo and completely disrupting what was seen to be the overwhelming force in computers at the time. And then he launched the Think Different campaign, where he featured these really world-changing people like I think, Gandhi and some real pioneers in that black and white film. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was all about, modeling these people and completely changing, making a complete step change in in the way he thought. And this led to him focusing on benefits rather than features. So while the rest of the IT world, or when the MP3 players, they were promoting them, they were talking about the megabytes. He was talking about 1,000 songs in your pocket. So that's how mindset changed his complete approach to business. And he started completely thinking from the consumer's perspective, a very empathetic perspective. So that was one of the things that he did very effectively, and he was able to use mindset. I won't go into too much detail now, but just to further expand on Dana's point, mindset isn't an event. I think it's an iterative process. Sure, you can change your thoughts in an instant, but it requires practice. It's like building a muscle. And I believe in mindfulness as a way of accessing your mindset. It's about recognizing that the power is in the pause, about creating spaciousness around your decisions, becoming aware of when you're about to switch from one activity to another, and using that muscle then to start becoming aware of when you're starting to switch from one thought pattern to another. And it takes time, but you get better at it as you keep practicing it. So I don't know if I've answered the question comprehensively enough, but mindset, I do believe, doesn't just change the decisions you make, but not the nature of the decisions, but the actual decisions. You might decide to go a completely different path because you want to become $1 billion business rather than, this path.
That's really interesting. So I think this brings me pretty closely to what I want to talk to Matthew about. Matthew, you have this book called The Successful Mistake. And I think it's interesting when we think about, decisions we've made, right? And maybe we've made bad decisions in the past. Maybe those decisions have been, have led to some of our biggest failures. How do you kind of think about success and mindset when it comes to sort of, getting up after a failure, or, trying to find your legs again?
Yeah, it's a good question, Claire. And to be quite honest, it's got absolutely everything to do with it. When I first started interviewing everyone for the book, I didn't really anticipate that mindset would come into things. And although I knew about mindset, I didn't know a great deal about it. But by doing all those interviews and meeting all those successful people, it just introduced me to this world of mindset and led me to meet amazing people like Dana. And now I'm just like all about mindset and everything that comes into it. And the underpinning thing of turning a failure into success, I believe, comes down to something called a growth mindset. And it's just a rather simple thing where you've got a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. And the fixed mindset is a very black and white existence. You think you either are good at something or you are not. So I'm not very good at maths. I just don't have the very maths brain. So it doesn't matter how hard I'm going to try at maths. I'll only ever be okay. Whereas a growth mindset is the opposite of that. It's the world is multicolored and absolutely anything can happen. If I apply myself, I may start off as a rookie. I may start off not knowing what something is, but if I keep trying and keep progressing, then I will get better and I will progress. And the name of the game of a growth mindset is that progress, making sure you progress at each stage of the step. And that was it. That is what kept coming up time and time again in those 160 odd interviews with people. I realized that although there was certain patterns to overcoming failure and turning mistakes into success, the underpinning everything was how they approached it. They realized their mistakes were part of the game, that failure happens. And that if you have this growth mindset, you have this outlook that in time I can get better, I will be able to make progress, I'll be able to take one step after another, then that is how you turn a mistake into success. That is how you go down that journey and ultimately become a successful person. And this isn't something that happens just overnight. And this isn't something that these entrepreneurs who I interviewed consciously did. It's not like they dove into a book and learned all about mindset. It's kind of survival of the fittest. If you're going to be in this game long enough and succeed, eventually you've got to get it click that failure is part of this game. Mistakes happen. And every time something like this does happen, I have an opportunity to either dwell on it and just think that I'm not good, so therefore I should quit, or that, wow, this is a lesson. This has opened up some opportunity now for me to get better and to move onwards and upwards and on and on and on. And I've yet to meet anyone who's just got it figured out like that. you get the occasional overnight sensation whose first product or first iteration of said product just kind of clicks and works. But for every one of those, there's like 1,000 successful products and people out there who failed, and they made stupid mistakes, and stupid mistakes happened to them. It wasn't always their fault, but they were able to just learn from it and move on. And I think one of the key ways of overcoming that and developing a growth mindset is what Ash was saying, this idea of mindfulness. And I love how you say that the power of the pause. I love that. I may steal that now, Ash. I love that. That is perfect. It's so key. Just taking a step back, and it's another thing. If behind mindset, the next thing which probably came up the most was reflection. Successful people reflect. They take time during their mistakes, before their mistakes, in their day, to just take a step back, have a deep breath, and observe what's happening, what's going right, what's going wrong, why is it going right, why is it going wrong. And by doing that, you're able to develop the awareness, and you're able to say, right, well, how can I take the next step forward? If something isn't going right now, what can I do to make sure I improve a little bit tomorrow and a little bit after that? And that is how you develop, simply put, a growth mindset. And I think reflection is the key, because reflection gives you that opportunity to be aware. And then once you're aware, you have the opportunity to take action. And awareness plus action equals good times.
And isn't it amazing? You know, we just run, 500 miles a minute. And so it's so easy to not reflect because you're just on to the next thing.
Absolutely. And
particularly in today's environment.
Absolutely. I mean, all I can say right now is, like, we're recording this and it's in the middle of May, and I cannot fathom how we are nearly halfway through 2017.
Right.
And if you ask most people, they wake up in the morning, they go, they make breakfast, they get ready, they move into the first task and the next task, before they know it, it's 6 o'clock, they pick up the kids, they make tea, they then watch a bit of TV, they clean the house, they go to bed, and then it's the same the next morning. And the days and the weeks just fly on by, and at no point have they given themselves an opportunity to just like smell the roses and figure out what is working, what isn't working, why. That is the key thing. Why isn't it working? Why is it working? And I think most people, and myself included, and I imagine if we're all honest, everyone on this call right now are guilty of that, just not taking the time to reflect when indeed we should. But I think until you become aware of mindset, you are going to be the most guilty of it, and you will just race through life. And I mean, entrepreneurship in general glorifies the hustle. There's no glory in the hustle. There's glory in achievement. Hustle isn't the end game. Sometimes we have to hustle, but the end game is surely success. And hustle is just going to throw you into the deep end. You're just going to get burnt out, and you're not going to have any time to reflect. And for me and my experience with everyone who I've interviewed, it only takes you so far. So, yeah.
I love that. Hustle isn't the end game. So, Dana, I want to ask you kind of more about this idea of, what happens with disappointment. I was at an event last week, and I ran into an old friend, and we had sort of this, 20 minutes, we were kind of catching up, and they basically, told me this terrible story of this really, really huge disappointment in their life, right? And they said, he said, "I'm sad, but I'm not stuck." And I thought that was a really good phrase. And I guess I just want to ask you, what do we do when we have something really big and bad that's happened? And I mean, we're trying to maybe think about getting into that growth mindset like Matthew talks about, but what do we do to sort of move on from that to keep kind of going on, a trajectory towards success?
That's a great question. It's a great question because I think people have this idea with the positive thinking movement or the mindset movement that everybody's just walking around all blissed out and that, life is just so happy all the time. And I can testify just for myself saying I've been doing this for 30 years and every single day there's still something that makes me frustrated or knocks me off center. Usually it's my computer, and, something that just puts you not in the right frame of mind. And so the only thing we get really good at is we get better at catching it and we get better at turning it around. So it's not like you're just walking out like a blissed out puppet because really you wouldn't want that anyway. People think they would want that, but the truth is food never tastes so good as when you're hungry. You want to have those times when you're off so that you can right yourself. You want to ride the wave. You want to have those challenges that get you a little bit unsure so that you have a chance to right and rise to the occasion. I mean, I do anyway. Most of us didn't sign up just to we'd be pretty bored, I think, if we were just sitting here blissed out in a hot tub all day. How long would it take for that to get old? We want to have some challenges. So you have times where you get off center, and that's okay. You have times when you have disappointments, and that's okay too. You get better at catching them, and you get better at turning them around. Matthew made a point about, successful people, and, some people I think are just better at this than others. They're more naturally optimistic, and they're better at it. But the good news is everybody can learn it. And the really good news is, in my experience, the more negative you are, the faster this stuff works. Because when you think about it, you've been going through your whole life getting the results you're getting, being super negative. When you start to apply even just a little bit of this, you start to see exponential. Those of us who were born were optimistic. We can take our lives from a 7 to a 9 or an 8 to a 10. But those who are negative, you have a much better chance for huge growth on this. And also, to piggyback on what Ash said, this is just a muscle that you work. We learn to read. We learn to write, we learn all of these things. Positive mindset and creating your outcomes is just another muscle that you work, and you get better at it. Really, there are only 4 steps to change that I teach in Train Your Brain. The first one is being aware. I called my company the Mind Aware because it's so essential. And Ash made reference to it. Alinka, I'll bet you did too, but I probably didn't catch it yet. Matthew made, awareness is key. If you catch yourself feeling bad, if you catch yourself getting a bad outcome, just be aware, like, okay, I'm in an off state right now. This is not where I want to be. I don't want these results. Or I'm in an off state. This is not how I want to be emotionally. Step 2 is decide, is this the way you want to continue to go? Is this the story or the situation you want your reticular activating system, the little matchmaker that lives in your head, to continue to match? Because if you do, then just keep sulking and keep feeling bad and keep talking about it, and your reticular activating system, the matchmaker that lives in your head, will keep getting you that same result over and over again. But if you decide, no, I don't want to keep matching this result, then step 3 is you must find a way to talk about the current situation in a way that feels good. So wouldn't it be nice if we could all live like a positive mantra man, where it's like, I am happy, I am healthy, I am wealthy, and really believe that? But the truth is, that's not how most of us operate. So if you can't say some kind of awesome positive affirmation in this moment, then talk about the current situation in a way that feels good, or in a way that feels better. Okay, I didn't get the result I like. I'm not so crazy about that, but I remember what I learned about that reticular activating system, that matchmaker that lives in my head. I don't want this to continue. I want to start feeling better. Let's see if I can think of some benefit. Okay, I can't think of any benefit right now because I'm still pretty upset about it, but I am open. I'm open to thinking differently. I'm open to feeling better. I'm open to looking for some change. I'm open to looking for benefits. I'm going to trust that if I keep intentionally saying sentences like this to myself, like I would to a child or to my best friend, I would tell my best friend, you know what? You'll get back on your feet. So why don't I just say that to myself? I would tell my child, oh, hey, this is going to pass. So why wouldn't I say that to myself? You know what? I'm starting to feel better already. I like how this works. I like that when I focus on one thought at a time that feels better, I start to feel better. When I focus on one sentence at a time, when I coax myself into a better feeling place, this works really nice for me. I don't have to walk around being positive mantra person. I can just coax myself into feeling better. I'm feeling better already. Even as I said those sentences all in a row, you start to feel the shift. You start to feel the release. You start to go, okay, this isn't the best situation in the world, but's a very powerful word. But changes everything that comes before it. So I didn't get the result I want, but I'm open to the next result, but I'm open to feeling better, but I'm open to standing up again, but I'm open to trying again, but I'm trusting that I'm on my path, but I'm trusting that things will work out better for me, but I'm learning, I'm getting better, things are getting better. Every time you say that word but, everything that goes after it is the part that gets cemented into the brain. So step 3 is find a way to coax yourself into a better feeling place. Step 4, feel that positive emotion. Because once you start feeling that positive emotion, now you open the creative pathways in your brain. And you don't have to be bouncing off the ceilings happy. If you can get yourself even feeling hopeful, that's a huge shift from frustration. When you're feeling negative or frustrated or overwhelmed, your creative pathways in your brain are constricted. You literally can't access good ideas. When you start feeling happy and positive, now you open up those creative pathways. Now you start to be able to get better ideas. You feel like working, you make better decisions, you feel like engaging, you like people better, they like you better, you start to get into that flow. It seems like everything you touch turns to gold. This is why mindset is primary. Start with mindset. Feel good first, then take action. So if you're feeling down or disappointed, job number 1 is to do nothing except find a way to feel good.
Wow, that's so powerful. So Alinka, kind of going along with this, talk to me about, some of your clients and some of the authors you work with. Do they struggle with these kind of issues when they're trying to, reach success and sell more books and publish more?
Yeah, absolutely. And it really links to what just Dana said, so I can blend really well into what we just talked about. It all starts with a decision. The people who I see struggling most are people who haven't really decided and committed that they want to succeed. So people who are not really sure if they should do this program or that program or do it themselves or find a coach, and they're sort of, floating in this area of possibilities, but not really picking one path. But when I see somebody actually enrolling into one of my programs, they make a decision, they make a commitment, and once they've decided, I can see the success, the success story happening. And it comes from what Dana said, from the decision, which was, I think, step 2 in the train your brain methodology, right?
Yeah, good job.
And make decisions. Exactly. And I like to make decisions when I feel good. So the same thing Dana said, I try not to, make any major decisions, or even if I don't have to, not act until I feel good, because I've never thought about it this way, that, your pathways are not as open as they should be. So you don't have access to the really good ideas and the really good thoughts. But I just know that when I make a decision and I'm not feeling good in that moment, that's not going to be a good decision. So first I feel good, or, just hold off. I don't have to feel good every single moment. I can, have a moment of, okay, I'm not feeling so great right now. There's this law of rhythm, or, ebb and flow. I don't have to feel, like you said, the mantra person, I'm happy 100% of the time. I might actually find relief that, I'm feeling a little bit upset right now, and I have the right to feel upset. I don't have to be, upbeat all the time. So I might actually enjoy it for a second. I'm gonna sulk here for a moment. And then when I start feeling better, which I know that I will, because it's like jumping on a trampoline, right? You're in the air, whee, and you're happy, and you're excited, and, and everything's working, and then you drop down. And okay, so I'm gonna, I can enjoy being down because I know that I'm gonna jump right up in just a little moment. And, and when I'm flying high and it's really great, then sort of milk that. So it's really a matter of perspective. And now I even have this Post-it attached to my computer screen, which says law of rhythm, so that if there's something that's not working at that moment, I'm sort of able to, zoom out and say, okay, this is just a brief moment of what's, the whole thing that's happening right now. So this is going to pass and I'm going to be back, jumping up again and happy. And so the inspired action, that's what I think really works. And I was just recently reading a Tony Robbins book, and he also was mentioning decision and how important that is. And here's where success comes from. He says, so where does success come from? Success comes from making good decisions. And where do good decisions come from? From experience. And where does experience come from? Bad decisions. So the shortcut, success comes from bad decisions. Well, bad decisions give you experience. Experience, when you have experience, you start making good decisions. And with good decisions, you succeed. So somebody said, fail faster. And when you fail faster, you give yourself this, you allow yourself to fail. And, by failure, I don't mean, game over, you're done here. By fail, I mean learning experience. So just, what you've already mentioned, that you just look at it as something, okay, this hasn't worked out. Well, good. It's like what Thomas Edison said when he was working on the light bulb invention. He, the first 10,000 times didn't really work. And he didn't say, I didn't fail. He said, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I found 10,000 ways that don't work. So every time he failed, he was closer, to the invention that now allows us to have this conversation, right?
I love it.
Yeah, I think if you look at it that way, then you're so much closer to success.
So, Ash, I want to ask you about developing a strong mindset and this idea of kind of exercising those muscles. What are some action steps listeners can take if they want to try to develop a stronger mindset?
Excuse me. There's quite a few things a listener can do, but I just wanted to. Is it okay if I respond to some of the points that have been made earlier? I've just been making notes as people have been talking.
Of course.
I thought I might be able to add some value. First of all, I didn't fully answer your question before when I was trying to explain the difference between the kinds of decisions people make when they have a thinking big mindset that are completely different to the decisions they would make if they were just not thinking as big. And I thought of something as the others were talking. That's Elon Musk, in his attempt to think big and solve the problem, the problem of renewable energy, the renewable energy issues. He's not just trying to build electric cars, but now he's trying to build tunnels so that he can create a completely different transport system and solve that problem from a completely different perspective. So what I think I was trying to say earlier is, when you think big, you don't just think linear, you think in orders of magnitude. You think completely, your mind goes to a completely different place, and you come up with completely different solutions. He's thinking quite laterally, clearly. And sure, some of his decisions might be insane and crazy, but those are as Steve Jobs says, those are the ones that change the world. Another point I wanted to make is, to Dana's point, you were saying that a lot of us are living under this pressure of always needing to be happy. And I think partly our culture sort of enforces that. And I think the way media has evolved and has influenced society, there's this unreasonable expectation we all have on ourselves to continuously be happy. So I just want to point out the difference between contentment and happiness. And this comes from an Eastern philosophy. I'm not espousing religion of any kind. I'm not religious myself, but contentment is being at peace with whatever state you're in. And whether you're happy or whether you're unhappy, it's about acceptance of your state of mind and the willingness to work with that rather than resist it. So sure, we all go through phases when we feel down. I go through it all the time. I wasn't one of those people born with a wonderful success mindset. I struggle with it. I still work hard at it. And I think it's about being able to accept that, okay, I'm feeling like crap right now. And I accept that, and then dropping into your physical sensations. So coming back to your earlier question, Dana, coming back to your earlier question, Claire, how does one develop a mindset in terms of actions? Well, you drop into your physical sensations, and one of the best things to use is your breath as an anchor. Why? Because a lot of the crazy making stuff happens up here in the cerebral cortex. But when we drop into our physiological system, as it were, and you become aware of your breath, you're disengaging with that conceptual crazy making space. Secondly, you're anchoring yourself in something that is not only non-conceptual, but something that is continuously in transition, that is your breath. And becoming aware of the fact that life is by nature transitional, life is by nature evanescent, it's continuously changing, it disengages the mind's tendency to think, oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. And that sense of permanence that comes with that sense of disaster, which we all have experienced. And that's very much like a child, the infant kind of mind, the reptilian mind, which just assumes everything is permanent and all-encompassing. But when you drop into your body and into your breath, you realize that there is a lot of movement, there's spaciousness, and you recognize that this too shall pass. And that's a very experiential way of disengaging with the whole mental calamitous kind of thinking and going, okay, I'm going to drop into my breath. I'm going to experience the sensations. How am I feeling this sensation of discomfort? How am I feeling this sadness? Is it tingling in my chest or in my upper back? And, watching those feelings as they change, and then moving back into the mind and saying, okay, now I'm going to start making different choices.
And so, Matthew, what about you? After learning from, the sort of failures of 160 some others, are there things that you do now in your own sort of practice, in your own mindset practice to kind of better yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with a lot of the stuff now I do after the success mistake, it's largely habit forming and mindset based, and I'm basically my own guinea pig. I'm trying to hack my own system and develop my own successful mindset, because, well, my eyes were opened by doing all these interviews and to hang out with amazing people like I am right now. It's inspirational to see people further down the line. It pushes me forward, and it goes back to what I said earlier, reflection. That's probably the biggest thing for me in terms of what I do on a daily basis. And I try and have a morning reflection period, an evening reflection period, and a bedtime reflection period. I've never been a morning person, and my fixed mindset would said, well, I'm not a morning person, so I never will be a morning person. But now I know that that isn't the case, and that I can become a morning person, and that I can become more productive throughout my day. So I get up at 5:30 pretty much every morning now, and I don't do any sort of work usually until at least 8:30. And those first few hours are just dedicated to a little bit of meditation, and like Ash said there, breathing and finding my body. I do exercise, I go for a run. I read affirmations, I do a bit of reading, I spend time with my partner, and I dedicate myself for that whole period in different guises. It's all focused on reflection. It's all focused on me and prepare myself for the day. What am I worried about right now? What am I going to do today? What do I want to achieve? And then around about 6:30, I do just a 10-15 minute evening reflection period where I write in my journal. I again read some sort of affirmations. And that is like my bridge between work me and personal life. That's my bridge of like, it's okay to turn off now. Like, what has gone right today? What hasn't gone right? What am I thankful for? What do I love? What do I love about myself? What do I love about the people around me? And then the bedtime routine, I'll literally be doing it right after this call, because I'll be going to bed. And it's, again, I've got some evening reflections, some evening affirmations, and I just kind of read them. And it takes me not even 5 minutes, but it's just preparation for now this day is ended, and what am I going to do tomorrow? And the last thing I say before I go to bed is like, if when I wake up tomorrow, I am tempted to go back to sleep, and I will drink a glass of water and I will go upstairs, sit down and meditate regardless. And that just is the last thing that's on my mind. And then the next day, the first thing I do is reflection. So just having those 3 periods of reflection, which add up. I mean, the morning one is quite a long one because I ease into my day. But in terms of, I mean, you could do 10 minutes at a time. And I say to people, like, if you could dedicate like 5-10 minutes in the morning, in the evening, in the bedtime to like totally change your life and how you see it and how you approach it, like, would you be able to find that 30 minutes? And I always say, like, you spend 30 minutes every single day showering, brushing your teeth and getting ready. Things you do not need to do, really. I mean, you could shower like every 3 or 4 days. It's not going to kill you, right? You don't, like 50, 60 years ago, people didn't really brush their teeth.
Totally.
And we find time for it because it's important to us. We don't find 30 minutes a day to reflect on us and to grow ourselves. It's not that you don't have time. It's that you don't consider it important enough.
Right.
You're doing, consider it important to shower, brush your teeth, and put on fresh clothes. It's all a matter of perspective, like Ash says. So 10 minutes in morning, evening, and bedtime, your life will change.
I love that. I mean, those practical suggestions and Ash's as well are just so tangible. Wow. So Dana, we're kind of coming up on the end here. Can you kind of close us out with maybe a few other things folks can do today if they want to, start implementing this idea that, the way you think really will change the success you see?
Yes. Thank you for asking. I've been really trying to be conscious and careful to speak for myself if I'm speaking for myself. And so the first piece I'll say will be just for me. And then I think I can see a theme going with everybody. The piece for me that I want to really stress before we leave is that nobody can think in your head but you. And so we care about a lot of things in our world. We care about maybe the house you live in, the car you drive, the clothes you wear, the food you eat, the neighborhood you live in, whatever it might be. I would like to say, care more about what you think. Care more about the thoughts in your head. You care enough about the pair of shoes you're putting on, care more about the thoughts that are going on in your head. Make that a priority. And then just seeing what everybody's talking about and kind of seeing the theme here about what everybody's saying, be open and be gentle about this with yourself. You can ease into this. Just the fact that you've listened this long into this means that you're a candidate. You're already interested. And so just go easy on yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Don't think that you're never going to have another negative thought, or you're not going to do things that are off center and maybe not the real you. There are going to be times when you're going to be angry or you're going to be upset, but you can always come back. You can always write it. You can get better at this. You can exercise this muscle. And I think, sometimes we've been talking a lot about being aware and being mindful here. And I think everybody would agree with me that it's great if you can sit down and meditate every day. But if you can't do that right now, or you don't see that you've got the time for it, then just set up reminders on your phone to go off 4 or 5 times a day with some kind of a happy phrase or some kind of a thing that says like, be aware now, or like Ash was saying, take a breath, right now, or reflect right now, right? I mean, there's all sorts of ways that you can stop in the moment and take 30 seconds to just check in with yourself, and write yourself right in the moment. Like, okay, how am I right now? Can I just get a little bit of peace? And, 4 is not enough, do 10, right? There are ways that we can interrupt our day or interrupt our process. Put some Post-it notes up around your house. Matthew was talking about right before he went to bed, if you have it on your alarm clock when you wake up and it says like, today's going to be a great day, or I want it to be a great day, that's the first thing you see. It reminds you like, oh yeah, I'm waking up. I've just woken up from a great sleep. I can start again. I can start again right now. So there are all sorts of little cheats that you can do to kind of remind yourself and keep yourself on track, and it doesn't have to be a big deal, because what will happen is your own results and your own excitement from this, as you start to progress and get better and better, will you'll bring yourself in further and further. You'll be ready when you're ready. And in the meantime, just have some fun with this. Know that when you feel good, you get better results. So feel good and then take action. That's it, really. And I know I speak for everybody when I say I think this was really fun. And I really enjoyed this time together. It's so fun to play with people like this. So thank you for having us, Claire. This is awesome. And I know this summit is just like rocking. So thank you again.
Well, thank you guys for being here. You know, this is super valuable and super valuable to me, probably more than anyone else. But I love it. Can you just kind of, maybe starting with Dana, just share where folks can find you?
Oh, sure. You can go to danawilde.com, and Wilde has an E at the end. Check it out. We're in all the usual places. Hope you can catch the Mind Aware show. That'd be awesome.
And Matthew?
You can find out all you need to know about me at successfulmistake.com. So that's just successfulmistake.com. So the book is behind me. You can check that out on Amazon. But yeah, successfulmistake.com. You can read a free sample, contact me, feel free to email me. And yeah, like Dana says, thank you so much for having me part of this, Claire. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's been great hanging out with you all.
Awesome. Ash?
You can find me on productiveinsights.com. That's INSIGHTS.com, or head over to iTunes and you'll find the Productive Insights podcast. There's just one thing I wanted to just mention in addition to what Dana said, and that is when you make choices, try and make them in each present moment, because that allows you to work on a smaller, increment of time, and that's much more effective over the long term.
I love it. And Alinka, where can folks find you?
I'm at authorremake.com. That's authorremake.com. And when you get an email from me and you write to me that you heard about me on Claire's Summit, I'll send you the book that started me out on the publishing path, and that's actually a mindset book, which I published in 2010. I've never given it away for free, but I'm happy to do that for, Claire's people, and I would love to share that with you. So, bonus.
I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so grateful for your time and your wisdom, and I hope you have an awesome day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.